Okay. Hello, my fellow Knighties, and welcome to my first episode to what I would be calling explaining my OCs. Or, well, it'll change depending on my future mindset in this after this recording. So today we are going to be talking about one of my first OCs, I'll say. Today we're going to be explaining ShadowKnight, AKSK, which you may have seen a lot in if you check my media, my posts, everything. I just put it like parentheses SK. That stands for ShadowKnight, which I would now, I don't know, basically today I'm going to be explaining the history and my mindset on that OC. And how it came to be my first OC, and many other interesting things to add upon that, you know? Okay, let's start the talking. Okay, to start off with, we're gonna start with the backstory of SK, which I haven't actually completed a story on that. Fun fact. So I'll give you a basic go through, and later I'll post that story if I ever finish it. Okay. ShadowKnight is part of this clan named the Shadowwalkers. He, with his siblings, one of them being Walvies, who is the dark brother, I would say, if I'm correct. Yeah. Actually, I'll start explaining him later. But basically, ShadowKnight is born with his siblings, which you'll learn later of their names. Now you know Walvies. And yeah, that all. So he's born in the world of Ulvin, which, if you don't know, Ulvin is one of my main stories I'm working on, which will be a while until I actually finish, because it's a long story. I'm in like 10 pages. So ShadowKnight, he's born in the clan of Shadowwalkers, which are a clan of people who use the powers of shadow, similar to that of Void Masters, but sort of to less prevalent scale or something. Yes, they could walk shadows, and yes, they could form anything out of shadows. To give you a basic idea on why for the first place, if you've seen my artist ShadowKnight, you would know he has a sword. I would explain that later. Well, actually right now. So you see, the Shadowwalker. Oh, that was. But you see, the Shadowwalker clan, they have the 3 shrines. One for their god, one for their sacred sword, and another for their, if I'm correct, their ancestors. So, basically, as in the world of Ulvin, later you'll learn of a certain event that is basically the start or a new beginning to ShadowKnight, as that's when his clan disappears fully into darkness from this event named the darkness, or the shadowing, or something. But after that, ShadowKnight, before that happened, ShadowKnight, his clan works with the Ulvin royal family, so you could see that at a certain point in the Shadowwalker's life, they teamed up with the High Kings, which is heirs to Ulvin and all that. So, I'm bad at this. But, yeah, so basically, he grabs the sword, which if you don't know what it looks like, imagine a greatsword, just a normal old greatsword, but instead it has 3 big scale holes. One at the part that is closest to the hilt, not exactly like at the hilt, but they're all of the blade. So basically, in the middle, the um bottom, and the top. And in those holes are these gems, or later to be found gems that power up the blade. ShadowKnight, which has actually another name, but no one knows that since his name, so they just call him ShadowKnight, as that's what he calls himself. So ShadowKnight, after the darkening, walks through the shadows of the land used to be known as his home, and he later finds an angelic winged figure knight. So he then talks to the knight, which then asks Shadow Knight to be recruited into the Holy Knight's army, which then gets him sent up to the clouds, and he gains wings, so he's basically turns into an angel. And after that, he fights like billions of wars against the opposite team, which are like these darker versions of knights. As you would see later, by the name of the Shadow, I don't know, the knights that are descendants of, if I'm correct, I'm not sure what the descendants are, but you'll learn that in the story, of course. Since this is just me quickly going through his story. So basically, after fighting wars, his team thinks that he's too dark to be a light knight. You know, since he's from a clan that literally walks shadows, they think that he's evil, so they send him off. They basically banish him from the Holy Lands, which he was a great warrior. So that was kind of the reason of the certain event I'll explain later. But so he then decides to join the Darker Knights. I might just call them Shadow Knights, even though that's basically the name of Shadow Knight. Oh yeah, also, to add to the things I'm going to explain about Shadow Knight, I'm going to explain about Shadow Knight's alternate version, unless that version is going to be added to the story, which it actually may be. Okay, so Shadow Knight, brain. Okay, so Shadow Knight basically joins that army, and then does wars against the opposite team like he did with the Light Knights. He then goes up the ranks until he becomes a captain. Being a captain means that you basically control the wars and all that. So yeah, and that's when Shadow Knight so the Shadow Knights, or the Dark Knights I would call them, they gave Shadow Knight his iconic helmet and armor. Which, actually no, maybe it was the Holy Knights. Yeah, technically the Holy Knights would have been the one who gave him the armor, but by being in the Dark Knights, his armor got corroded by the shadows. Which, as you see, is the reason for a lot of explaining to do, which has to be with the Night Helm. That's when I first started war about him being a Dark Knight, I think. No, actually, I think that was later. No, before. Oh, actually, yeah, later. But yeah, to explain to you who made that Night Helm and why I'm so obsessed with it, it's my brother, and he made the Shadow Knight Helm, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it, because that's what, like, a basic idea of what he looks like, and I don't really actually know who came up with the idea, if it was me or Kurt. Oh, not Kurt, my brother. Gotta edit that out, darn it. Anyways, I'll explain stuff about that later. So, Shadow Knight basically He after a bit more wars as the captain, he basically leaves the army. Well, he's still technically a general there, but he just goes off on his own, leaving the Light Knights in ruin and the Shadow Knights to just do their own thing. Basically, giving them freedom from the Light Knights being. I don't know. But, so that happens. So that's basically the start of Shadow Knight. He then walks the ground of the darkness. And, on his journey, he actually finds, like, these creatures that have these purple-like feathers that protect you from light and darkness. So he, slays them, gathers their feathers, and makes a cape out of them. That's what I'm gonna use to explain the cape he has, which actually is pretty fun to draw. But yeah. So Shadow Knight, after he does that and walks the darkness, of course, he later just stays in the void. I'm gonna call it at this moment. So in that void, nothing much really happens, and he just stays there until 1 years later. If you guys wait, no, I guess that'll be spoilers for I'm making. But whatever, spoilers ahead for a certain manga if you don't want to be spoiled by that. He is later found by. This is basically like me just giving you my ideals, but he is later to be found by. Not Shadow Knight, Void Master. Void Master. If you don't know what Void Master is, it's Void Master Damien, which I'll explain in probably the next explaining a character. Void Master has to be one of my most iconic and most not drawn but thought about characters since I don't know. He sort of came before Lightning Boy. Oh yeah, you guys don't know about Lightning Boy. I'll explain those two later. Well, actually no, I'll make little videos. So basically, Void Master finds Shadow Knight later, and Shadow Knight at that point just feels weak and not really powerful enough to do something. So then later, well not later, but at that moment, Shadow Knight asks Void Master to I don't know the word, but it's when you basically challenge someone to see if they're worthy. Yeah, that's actually what I should say. Basically, Shadow Knight challenges Void Master to see if they're worthy of their powers, which ends up in a very long fight, which Void Master wins, and then Shadow Knight then decides to give Void Master the Knight's powers, his powers basically, which then would explain the ability of Void Master being able to form Shadow Knight's shell over him, which of course extends the life of Shadow Knight and gives iconically Void Master another form. Void Master, spoilers alert, has a lot of forms, and it's a bit of a crazy character that's probably gonna be even harder to explain than Shadow Knight. So yeah. Oh yeah, and how Shadow Knight came to be my first OC has to be when I first started. It was either a game idea or just a character himself. I first thought of like this game, of course, but like you would travel through this kingdom. You'll fight these shadowy like people with shadow in the name. Later you'll find, Shadow Knight, who is the final boss, who is his first version. I don't know why, but the only way I could make it look normal is if he was like, I don't know, like bigger, I guess. Oh yeah, Shadow Knight is like a giant. I forgot to tell you that. He's giant for some reason. Well, technically everyone in the Shadow Walker family, at least if you count Elfie, Zod, and ShadowKnight, are technically giants. Anyways, so basically, ShadowKnight, he was supposed to be a final boss, or he was based on this, I don't know, I made a, oh yeah, the alternate story, I forgot to tell you about that. Basically, it was where he was like this father of his son and the husband, of course. And then he like, what was it? Something to do with he was basically betrayed by another army, like the Corn story. But then he was sent off to this void-like world, which then he became the creator of that void-like world, making a kingdom and everything, basically becoming its god or its king. Fun fact, ShadowKnight is a knight, but he's technically a king or a leader of his own kingdom that he made. But I still call him ShadowKnight because Shadow King or Shadow Lord, actually that sounds kind of nice, but it doesn't really sound normal to me. And if you don't know, ShadowKnight sadly is a probably already used name, but yeah. It's pretty explanatory why he's called ShadowKnight. First off, he's like basically a void entity or shadow entity, and then second of all, he's a knight. He has knight armor and all that, and a cape because keeps look cool. And ShadowKnight, he is well, I guess that's all I have to explain. And basically, in a story, that what happens, I don't know if that fully explains ShadowKnight, but it's technically the best I could do at the moment. Guess I could explain some extra stuff about him. One is that his crystals, or the 3 crystals that go into the holes of his sword, would most likely symbolize, like, the history or something to do with the Shadow Walker clan. Also, fun fact, I first actually made a name for him, the god of the Shadow Walkers, but then I think I changed it to maybe being like, I think, oh, he who lives with, or by blood? Oh, he who lives in blood, I think its name. I'll explain that later. But yeah, Shadow Walker is basically one of the most powerful ShadowKnight is one of the most powerful Shadow Walkers due to him holding a legendary sword and him just having like lots of training in each army, I guess. I don't know. ShadowKnight just came to be one of my most favorite and like used characters in my ideals before I came to the ideal of Voidmaster. Oh yeah, Voidmaster. No, I'll explain that in a video explaining Voidmaster. Yeah, I'll explain more about Voidmaster later in life. But yeah. I guess that's it. Not as difficult as I thought it would be. But yeah, I'll explain about Voidmaster, which would actually is go branch out towards a lot of different things, I guess. Anyways, goodbye, my mateys. Have a awesome day, and make sure to armor up for the end of the world. Those dragons shall fall upon us. Maybe that should be my outro. I'll make our outros.